Good morning, everybody. Welcome to, that's even better. Welcome to day 2. I'm honored to bring a lot of fantastic speakers. Today we're going to talk more about the product and business side of things. As you know, my name is Evan Nisselson. Twitter handle is there, and a fantastic photographer tweeting behind me in real time with his camera. Visual technologies are revolutionizing business and humanity. For those of you who are new today, we talked about this yesterday, but to reiterate, the goal of this summit is quite exciting and challenging, and it's to bring together the 6 key groups of people in our visual technology ecosystem, from the creators, the startups, the investors, tech execs, computer vision and AI experts, and the medium brand executives. And why is that unique? Is because those groups typically have their own events that are separate. Computer vision folks have their CVPR and others, which is great. Media events have focused video ones, but we believe bringing everybody together for the serendipity of hopefully startups finding money, but also recruiting maybe a co-founder that's a computer vision expert, or big companies recruiting researchers, or photographers finding ways to leverage new technology to visually communicate. And fortunately, over the past years, it's been very exciting to see actually these happening. Big companies recruiting people, co-founders finding each other, and companies finding money. Today is more the business and product focus, as we mentioned. And critically, it's about all of these fantastic attributes, from finding deals to learning to investing to recruiting and being inspired. We couldn't do this alone. And thanks to Rebecca from CakeWorks and Serge from Cornell Tech, helps to find the right speakers, helps to find the right topics, and helps us find the right people to be in the audience. And I couldn't do it without them, so that's fantastic. We do a book every year. Not only do we book, we have photography and video sessions, because I think every one of you enjoy your content in different ways and at different times. So everybody can benefit depending on whether or not you're on a plane without Wi-Fi or would rather read a hardcover book, and they actually still exist. Our partners, sponsors, and media partners. In addition, SVA for helping collaborate not only on content, but with this great theater, ICP, and our sponsors. AWS is giving $5,000 in credits for AWS to the winners of yesterday's competition and today's competition. And then also Facebook, thank you, Fleur, GumGum, IDA Ireland, Microsoft, Qualcomm, and Vidlet. And Paul from Captor and Dean from VisWorld, who's doing graphic art that you're going to see throughout the day. Once again, another medium, so we're kind of eating our own dog food. How can we find different ways to communicate all of the visions and wisdom from our speakers? IDA Ireland sponsored the Wi-Fi. Password, obviously, is IDA Ireland. So, who is Evan? Real high level, so those that don't know me, I've been investing in visual technologies for 4 years, an entrepreneur for 18 years in Silicon Valley, New York, and Europe, building 4 different visual technology businesses. Some succeeded, and some failed miserably. And I love helping entrepreneurs reach their visions while avoiding the mistakes that hopefully I made. For example, Matt at Clarify is one of our investments, and our focus at LDV Capital is investing in brilliant domain experts focusing in visual technology businesses. And we invest very early in all of these sectors, but even more specifically, all of the sectors, or maybe less specifically, the horizontal approach of every topic at this summit relates to a potential sector that LDV would invest in. Here are some of the companies to date. We invest in a small amount of companies very, very early with the goal of helping them grow and obviously raising for marquee investors, which we've succeeded to date with 1 exit. All that's online if you want to look at that more. But what's unique also, it's how do we build a fund that has exponential value to entrepreneurs? Part is this event. We've also built a hacker news site that is called LDV Vision News with friends from Magic Leap and Google, CakeWorks, and others. And we have a regular dinner series. So the goal is all of these help the ecosystem and hopefully help you, and we can help each other. My first keynote for today, to start off, to give a little perspective on today. Yesterday we talked about the Internet of Eyes, where I believe every object will have sensors that can improve our lives and impact businesses. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about the actual content and the cameras everywhere, because today is more about the visual content and how it impacts businesses and humanity. But more cameras is not the goal. The goals are visually communicating better and better understanding our lives. So let's go back in time a little bit. 2006, 10 years ago, my friend Mike Davis, I photograph my friends' weddings and I give them photos as a gift. And back then is when I started using my camera phone. Actually, in 2003, I started using it and wrote an article, but in 2006, I was at a wedding. So that's the Trio, Palm Trio phone. If anybody remember the Palm Trio phone, right? So that's on the left, and my Nikon F is on my right hand, which was kind of silly. And Randy Olson, a geographic photographer, made this picture, and it appeared on Facebook a little while ago. There's the photograph on the Trio of Mike 10 years ago. And I started then using only my camera phone. Sometimes I do borrow my friend Ron's camera to shoot weddings, but actually I did one 2 weeks ago only with my camera phone, and it's once again not the goal to use the camera phone, but it depends on the tool you want to communicate. Visual content online has mostly been 2D. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, 2D, excuse me. But what happens and what types of visual content will people want to enjoy and create in 5 and 10 and 20 years? Will it be 2D? Will it be 3D? Will it be 360? Our next panel in the morning will talk about different 360 cameras and creating content. Yesterday we talked with Bijan about his views about that as well. So we need a little audio.
Hookah shaka, hookah, 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 I can't stop this feeling.
Here's an example of viral 3D content in 1996. Can we put the volume up a little bit higher?
What you do to me.
Okay, and why I mention this, it's a great then and now. We're now talking about 3D content. It's just the next cycle in our discussion. I was talking with Brian last night from Facebook, and he was like, it's just another iteration of how and when and what kind of technology we're going to use. But we've been using this for ages. And this went crazy viral in 1996. The world of immersive content creation is really hard, but it's going to be the success of virtual. So here's a Jaunt VR camera at a Paul McCartney concert, the start of it. Interesting comments about this is the vision behind it, what people see and what they're going to see when they have their headsets on. It's a totally different experience. And one of the things I think is phenomenal is that a lot of photographers say, well, I'm not interested in the latest technologies. But here's a huge opportunity for videographers and photographers to create the interesting content. Because at the end of the day, the visual creativity is going to succeed. Content, I believe, is king. Here's another example, a Litro camera, getting depth and understanding 3D. How do we create this? How do we edit it? How do we manage it? This reminds me of the early days in the 90s of building a website where everybody said, how do we do that? What's HTML? And then over time, the tools evolved to make it easy. It's the same thing, once again, that's going to happen in VR content. Crazy tools that confuse me, confuse other people, and some people will be the experts, and over time, it'll be much easier. And of course, it wouldn't be an event from Evan or a keynote from Evan if I didn't highlight my father enjoying the New York Times virtual reality. And of course, my mom, and here's to them, and I wouldn't be here without them, so thank you very much, Mom and Dad. And my sister Ellie is there as well. Sorry I don't have a picture of you up there, Ellie. I didn't want to embarrass you. But who will create this content, and what products will they use? Another thing I realized recently, and I think this is very interesting, of which we'll have more discussions today. So we all know this is now how we interact with our phones, constantly. It's either at dinner or somewhere else, on a bus line, everybody. But with 360 content, it's going to drastically change. I mean, I was watching on some 3D content in my home on the chair, and all of a sudden I started moving it around, and I realized that no longer are we going to be here. We're going to be here, and then we're going to be here, and we're going to start bumping into each other. But think about the human dynamics, and not just how we're going to create it, but how are we going to experience it? So in order to see the 360, you have to move and use the accelerometer and go like this. And I bumped into my friends, and it's going to be very interesting at the bus stop or at the subway, and people are going to start bumping into each other. How are we going to deal with that, and is that good or bad? Another sector of opportunities I think is unbelievable is health. This is a conventional method for endoscopy, but eventually it's this. And soon, that's the camera and all the different layers of the camera. But after that, it's going to be actually a 3D prototype of a small 1.5 millimeter camera that will go into our veins. We're talking about all the content with VR and exponential growth online. Forget it. We haven't even reached the amount of exponential content that's going to exist when we have micro cameras tracking our health in real time. But what's interesting here is a regular photograph that I made in 1995 or 6. But if these kids had cameras on them or in their blood, we would understand if they're healthy in addition to whether or not they're having fun. Lev Manowich studies culture and trends with images. These are all different signals. It's not just an image or a video, which is extremely valuable. It's the signals of connected images. Landmarks, Google Street View, taxis. All this data is multiple signals that I think will help businesses improve our lives. We've talked about the retina camera years ago, and I think it's going to actually in our lifetime happen. And Samsung recently patented the actual lens camera. Satellite selfies are around the corner, so cameras will be everywhere, and I'll be able to click my camera phone and take a picture and look up. Or actually, when there's enough satellites out there, they'll be at different angles, and we'll be able to look down the street and click a picture. I just took a picture of you. These are all the times that people think I'm crazy, which is okay, because sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, and together hopefully find the answers that create big businesses. The first two have happened. The third has a patent, doesn't mean it's a product yet, and the others are, I believe, coming. Once again, the goal is visual communicating, helping improving our lives. It's just the beginning. I don't have all the answers, and that's why I love bringing smarter people than me together and all of you so we can learn together, help each other, and hopefully find great companies to invest in that improve our lives.